We're at the point where there's still a lot of caveats here. It's a big property game. It's a Smash-like, right? It's a platform fighter. There's more chances for growth in that situation because Smash has the biggest audience to pull from, right? I get it. That is true. So we essentially need another free-to-play fighting game. This is related to what we're getting into. We need another free-to-play fighting game that is a traditional, like 2D / old school 3D fighting game that is free-to-play, that executes a similar model, and hopefully isn't, you know, trying to ream you through the ass with a huge amount of microtransactions and shit, that at least is making the ability for you to play the game and just try it and not spend money and see if you even enjoy it possible. And now it looks like Project L is actually going to be that game. It's the next test, right? It is the actual next test. Big franchise game, and it's going to be free to play. And guess what? It's a 2v2 assist-based tag fighter. It's about as it's about as obtuse and hardcore as a 2D fighting game can get, you know? It's not a 1v1 game. It's a 2v2 assist-based tag fighter. In the levels of like crazy hardcore fighting game shit, like tag team fighting games are kind of up there with like people just look at them and go, I don't even know what's going on. So essentially putting a fighting game in that premium, in that spot where it's like, hey, can this even work, right? Can we take like a fighting game that is a relative hardcore situation, like an assist-based tag fighter, something that people have a very hard time understanding? Can we make that successful, you know? And we don't know if that's going to happen, but the announcement today that it's free to play is a pretty big deal. And we're not going to find out for a while. We essentially found out that, yeah, it's pretty far away, you know? The game is still not close. So let's go ahead and check out what was actually revealed earlier today for Project L, because the industry is changing. We're at the precipice of shit changing. I've said 2023 for years, chat. I've been saying 2023 since this shit was announced. I'm still standing by it. I think 2023 is when the open beta for Project L will eventually come to be, but it'll be a very small roster, right? I think maybe official release might be like 2024, but I think if you're like, hey, when am I going to be playing Project L? I think 2023 is pretty good. I think that's like that's a high likelihood that there is going to be a playable of some fashion in 2023. And I've been saying that for literally fucking years. I think 2023 is pretty good. What is Project L about? It's an assist-based tag fighter that's free to play, is being currently developed at Riot, and it is based in the Arcane universe. So Jinx is a playable character. Widget, what the heck is the dude's name with the crazy hair, and he can reverse time and stuff like that? He makes a small appearance in the show. Echo, yeah, it's got several characters. It has a visual style like Arcane. It's probably the greatest fucking call in the world. What's his name? Well, I'm sorry, Chad. I'm not used to your champions. Okay, I have to get used to this stuff. This game caught me because it's a tag-based fighting game that is going to be potentially free to play with the huge property and some pretty cool looking characters. I'm still convinced that Gorlak is actually a real character in the game. All right, I'm still in that boat that like, where's Gorlak, right? I was promised something. Where is he? Such cool looking characters, man.
Hey folks, Tom here, back with a quick update on Project L, Riot's upcoming 2D fighter.
Wait a minute, how long has it been? Has it been 8 months? It's been since November, right? I think that was the last time we actually heard anything on the game. It's been 8 months since we've heard anything on this game. Wow. Wow, it's been a long time.
Last November, we dropped an update showing off some core game concepts and our rebooted art style.
Who's that weird shithead? Don't worry about that guy.
It was a little scary, and we're grateful that so many of you were so excited about Project L.
God, that was so sick.
Your reactions and excitement gave us the reassurance that we're headed in the right direction.
Yes! Yes!
Next time I'm going to next time I react to a Project L video of some kind, I am going to go yeah! The Polish Prime Minister attacking! Let's fucking go! That's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna see if they put it in there. I'm gonna challenge them. Chris is back! I'm gonna challenge these devs to put my shit in there. Who's the weirdest, shittiest character in League of Legends chat? Teemo! Teemo's back! back. Let's fucking go. There we go. I'm gonna give him one of those. And they could take that shit from me. I gotta be blurry. Ah! You know, I have to give him one of those. Some solid clickbait. Timo! You know?
Talk about what's been happening in the team over
I'll shut
the
up
past
now.
few months and what's coming next. Last time I shared that we've honed in on our gameplay.
Oh,
as
shit.
an assist-based fighter.
Why does this
with
look
2
so much
champs per
better?
team. We're finishing up our work on core mechanics now.
Is
And
this
a lot of the
actual
team
new
has moved on to
footage?
Building champions.
What the heck? Is that Clock? He looks like a wizard now. What happened? Is there like blood sparks? Oh my god.
Moved on to building champions.
Oh my god, it looks
or
good.
building around game features like competitive play and our social systems.
Oh shit. Okay, these are
One
cool.
of our goals is to remove as many barriers as possible from you enjoying Project L. We want you to be able to play no matter where you live, what your skill level is, or how much money you have to spend on a game. To that, I'm happy to confirm that Project L will be free to play. If you played a Riot game before, this probably won't come as a surprise.
It's no surprise.
Our team is made up of fighting game veterans.
I think
and
that's
folks who are
absolutely
passionate
Clock,
about
right?
serving the FGC. And we operate with one approach. If we wouldn't like it, we won't do it. When it comes to monetization, we promise to be respectful of both your time and your wallet. Also, the team has put together a blog post.
I like this, where it's like, okay, she has one tail, but maybe
Fine.
she can have
And
3 or way more tails.
Also, the team has put together a blog post to give you a sneak peek on development of a new fighter in Project L, Illaoi the Kraken Priestess. The spiritual leader of her people, Illaoi is a physical
this an existing
powerhouse
character?
who tests the strength of souls.
Has she
for
been
her
in
chemical god.
League before?
Check out the post for more details on how we're approaching
Yeah?
character development
Okay.
and how Illaoi will look.
These look pretty
and play in
sick.
Project L. That's all from me for now.
Oh.
I'll be back later this year with one more update. Before I sign off, this weekend is EVO. To everyone heading out to the event, stay safe, good luck in the tournaments, and try not to drown in pools.
So the next update will be, he literally says the next update will be later this year, but see you, like, enjoy EVO. I'm wondering if there's going to be an EVO announcement. Was that one of the characters I picked? I have to check out this blog post. Yeah, hold on a second. Was that one of the characters I picked that was cool earlier? This chick is badass looking. Holy shit. Holy shit. I'm Sean Riviere, Associate Game Director and Gameplay Design Lead for Project L, 2D Fighting Game. We just got an update from Tom about our aspirations and current focuses as a development team. Excited for us to be able to provide a small update on, how do you pronounce this? Illaoi? Illaoi? On an upcoming fighter. Before the team worked on her, she shares some early insight into her development. I want to talk a bit about the dev process in Project L overall. Okay. We start off by deciding which champions we want to pursue. Our ultimate goal is to have a diverse and inclusive roster where everyone can find a champion that truly speaks to them. So we got to have some weird, cute moe horseshit. There's a ton of considerations such as, but not limited to, fight, fantasy theme, archetype, team synergy, race, ethnicity, personality, identity size, etc. Once we have a champion in mind, we plan out when we'll begin working on them and then create a pod, which consists of folks across disciplines such as design, narrative, art, engineering, tech, art, QA, production, and audio. This is a lot of the roster considerations for fighting games and how, like, why some rosters end up being so weird. It's also like a testament to why this game, for as small of a roster as it has, there's like 15 characters in this game or some shit, why with even such a small roster is this roster so badass. Like, it's very there's a lot of thought that goes into character selection for like a core game, you know. Anyway, it's something I actually very much appreciate, of like, who makes those choices, why do they make those choices, stuff like that. At high level, a few phases. We move from champions. We move champions through our champion pipeline. Today we're focusing on the first DNA. If you haven't seen any of our character development stories from League or Valorant, the term might look familiar at this stage. Designer, narrative, and concept animation artist focus on exploring possibilities, inspiring each other with cool visuals, thematics, and kit ideas until something exciting emerges. From there, using some extremely rough models and kits, we get the idea into the game. Once we lock down a direction, the team expands to include the rest of the disciplines that will be working on the champion, but that stage is something we'll cover at a later date. So now that they're actually at the point where, you know, they're throwing in new champions, because most fighting games get designed or sort of conceptualized with like a core 2 characters. there's like literally 2 characters, and they're like 2 different archetypes usually that fight each other, and you design your game around those 2 characters, right? You build the whole game around like, how the heck do these 2 guys work with all these mechanics, and then you expand from there, right? You start to work outwards into different scopes of zoning and movement and puppets and all this goofy stuff that fills the entire sphere of like fighting game archetype characters. It's fascinating, right? It's fascinating to see their approach on this stuff. With Illaoi in particular, we have an overwhelming number of champions to pull from League, and there are beefy juggernauts, agile assassins, powerful mages, to name a few. Still, we try to be thoughtful when deciding who to bring to Project L, and we want to make sure we identify champions who can both improve our gameplay and enhance by being in our game. In short, we want to elevate their fantasy. The juggernauts should be beefier, and assassins more agile, and the mages more powerful. But beyond that, they should still feel true to who they are. We still want players who know and love these characters to see what they expect and to give them a little more. That's the nice thing about fighting games, right? Is that when you get characters in fighting games, they're essentially most of the time like the best representation of that character, you know? Like they will include things from the games that they come from that are like obviously tried and true and reference stuff, but then they'll also have new things that they never really had before, and it's like, that's badass. Like that's why so many people like love Magneto in Marvel vs. Capcom, because Magneto, while he also is referencing tons of shit, is also like a very unique version of Magneto because he's this rush-down fucking monster, you know? We want players to see a champion in Project L do something they've never seen before and think, holy shit, they did what? Of course they can do that. Yeah, I think we just described that. Our narrative director, Scott Hawks, was the one to pitch Illaoi as a member of our starting roster. When thinking about my experience against her in League, specifically after a well-placed ult, listening to him talk about her story and theme, experiencing the amazing role in Ruined King, which I think was the RPG that they released, and chatting with the team about a number of ways we could really elevate her champion fantasy in Project L, I was getting stoked to include her. I felt like we could really create something special while paying homage to all the Illaoi fans out there, and I hope you feel that way once you get done reading. This is a big fucking blog post. This is a fat ass blog post, man. Jesus. So narrative, our goal with each champion is not to deliver what players expect. Instead, it reaches higher to deliver what they deserve. That's a very nice approach, right? Especially characters that have legacy and have been around for a while. We want to approach our characters that don't just deliver what you expect, instead reach higher and give you what you deserve. That's a nice fucking way to approach like fighting games. I like that. Our work on narrative began during the ideation of defining Illaoi's core truths, who she's been, who she is now, who she should be in the game. Our goal was to answer one thing: why is she a champion that we absolutely need to make? And when she was released from League of Legends nearly 7 years ago, she's been a staple or nightmare of top laners ever since. We've also seen her overwhelm her enemies in Runeterra and save the world from Ruination and Ruined King. With support from our central IP strategy team, I wrote a champion brief that sums up Illaoi special, what makes her special, and what is that players across the world love about her. The truth bearer of the that thing and deity of life, ocean storms, and motion, who is often depicted as a colossal kraken. Illaoi and her people come from the Serpent Isles, an island archipelago. Includes Bilgewater and her home island of Buru. In League, Illaoi's gameplay focuses on testing the worthiness of individuals, using the golden artifact known as the Eye of God. Wielding the massive idol, she rips souls from the host bodies and summons spectral tentacles to repeatedly slam into them. I know exactly what they're talking about. In a story world, those who survive test are deemed to be on the correct path and can move forward to pursue their true purpose in life, while those who fall are left in no uncertain terms, that they are falling to their duty to move to their own lives forward and are hindering the flow of the universe and experience that all survive. This is very important lore. So. Using all this information, we define Illaoi's core truth as powerful and charismatic spiritual leader who inspires the others with her unstoppable force. She turns heads and dominates the room with her physical presence and confident, purposeful swagger. Then, using the brief, I worked with the other discipline leads, like art and design, to create a North Star for her development. The way we ensure that Illaoi is instantly identifiable, even in a genre where we've never seen her, and even more important, we used it to look for opportunities to grow her legend, because a fighting game is a perfect place for Illaoi to shine. Yeah, like these characters are going to do more stuff in this game than what they even come from. And that's badass, right? That's actually incredibly fucking cool. With a clear picture in our minds, we can make sure that anyone who already knows Illaoi beyond the surface level also finds the character they love, while still empowering the development team to delight even her most devoted followers with a version that will blow the doors off, or in her case, rip the doors off their hinges with magical tentacles and beat you senseless with them. On a personal note, I loved who Illaoi is and who she could be since we developed her for League back in 2015, and although she's not one of the more popular champions, I think it's easy to see how her combination of bruised knuckles, devout heart, and joyous swagger, combining with all the new experiences we can put in players' hands, will make her a superstar in Project L. I feel like this is almost in the same vein of how, like, these guys are here to create, like, a League game, right? But they're essentially taking characters from League who are already existing franchise characters that have been around for a long time. So there's like an expectation. Even though they're obviously Riot employees, right? There's still a deep expectation, if not, I'd say, like, ideology they have to follow that will make people happy. Like, even if this is their own game, right? It's like in the same way I remember hearing stories of Capcom people losing their goddamn minds when they were making Marvel characters, and Marvel having a lot of very specific things about their characters. You can almost think of League characters essentially having a very similar amount of, like, reverence of the people that created them, if not the IP and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of consideration here, and this is, you know what all of that was? All of that was an extreme amount of consideration of why the game should even have this character in some way. It's a lot of work, man. So, this is from Mike Henry, the creative director. Once narrative has a good understanding of who they are, we move into their visuals. You can infuse so much more into a champion when you know who they are, especially when we compare all their visual representations. When Illaoi certainly wasn't lacking. Some of our champions lend themselves well to being altered quite a bit, whereas for others, it wouldn't make sense for them to be drastically changed in their appearance. When we started with Illaoi, it became clear she would be the latter. She has a really iconic look, tall, muscular, and imposing, but more than that, she's joyous spirited and believes in challenge others to live their lives to their fullest. And of all these things, it needed to be reflected in her appearance. Illaoi's physical build is pretty unique in the roster of League, and we referenced a lot of athletes with a focus on weightlifting and shot putters, mainly women who spend a lot of time lifting things as easy as Illaoi lifts her massive weapon. Yeah, she's built as shit, man. I do really dig the super long hair. That's probably going to lead to some great animation moments, you know? Her clothing is pretty purposeful. She's not exactly the type to keep up with the latest Runeterra fashion trends, so we decided to keep her outfit and the color palette similar to what most players have already come to associate. Yeah, like the top part is not changing. While altering the blocking a little to make it flesh out and capitalize on Project L's perspective. Yeah, so I get exactly what they mean. I wouldn't be surprised if they either went with this one or this one. And they went with this one, it looks like. Yep, because this one and this one have the best silhouettes. Giving her boots or shoes it is not great, right? Just throwing that out as somebody that knows absolute dick for shit about these characters and where they come from. The sandals or this stuff makes a lot of sense because these are much better silhouettes. And when you're in a fighting game, silhouettes is everything. Like, every pose, every silhouette has to be readable and make sense, and all this goofy stuff, crazy considerations. From her weapon to her braces to her earrings, we put a ton of thought into the small changes we made to her design to make sure she still felt true to her base, a form in League, and her people. We also needed to think about how Illaoi would move. To do this, we used some called movement studies. Okay, so for anybody that has ever done animation, yes, the most important tool in an animator's repertoire outside of your pencil and paper, or now it would be, I guess, digital art pad and you know, and your pen, it's a mirror. Like, you need a fucking mirror. Mirrors are the most, a mirror, if not like a significant other or a friend that can pose for you or something like that, or like hit some angles. Like, you need reference, like things you need reference constantly. We also need to think how she would move. So as an extremely unique fighting style, Golden Idol, Spirit Tentacles, so these motion studies help sort out some unknowns, and even more than if she were to use a sword or an axe. We wanted to nail how her tentacles work and move, how her power is felt by the player, and how absolutely devastating it is to be hit by her. Cool. Once the movement study was complete, the animators worked with an early version of Illaoi to see how her size and proportions felt in the game. Using the movement studies, they were able to take the poses in game so we could see how Illaoi's proportions looked in the context of a fighting game. Once that's locked, it's on to the game design to figure out her kit and how it's implemented into the game. So the crazy part is that a lot of this is, from what I can tell, like some of this is in a similar order to Killer Instinct and how its character creation process sort of went. And most of the time, yes, like narrative and art will actually precede design, right? And it's always like an interesting thing. Like, so wait a minute, does the art side figure out what moves the characters are going to do, or does the game designer do that, you know? And that's an entire process. That's an entire giant thing that will mess shit up, right? It's an entire thing that depicts how things will move forward going into completing a character, much less on the next character to the next character, and then it becomes smoother and smoother, and characters come online faster and faster and faster. So it's interesting, right? Is it the chicken or the egg? Yeah, it's a fascinating thing how art, and I remember hearing stories of how art and game design were always at each other's throats, right? Because it's like one or the other. You get this side of like the art side that really wants to do this thing, and the game design that's just like, no, we want to do this thing. Like, no, we should have priority on this thing. And that's where, you know, directors start coming in and making a big influence, and producers and stuff, where it's like they have to find the best balance between who wants to deal with this and how do we get it to work the way we need it to get something we want. Like, it's interesting. Architect versus engineer. Art versus design. It's the fucking way it is, man. So once that's all locked, it's on to game design to figure out how our kit and how it's implemented in the game. So from Caroline Montano, game designer, I mained Illaoi top lane in League, so I know her gameplay very well and was super excited for her in Project L. If you're honored to be working on her design. We started the DNA phase for Illaoi. We did a deep dive into her lore and existed moments for her champion fantasy. That's interesting. Moments to find her core champion fantasy. That's interesting. That's a way of like fulfilling a fantasy is what they are creating their characters in a way, how they're being depicted in a fighting game. We drew inspiration from all of her iterations and even from watching players play the character. We really wanted to grasp what makes her powerful, and one of the main things we identified early was that she was going to be a big body, a huge hurt box, massive hits, slower movement, with a simple to learn and hard to master kit. So it sounds like she's Juggernaut, right? That they didn't turn her into like a command grab character or something like that. No, it sounds like she might arguably have armor on moves or attacks, or just be a massive brawler, like giant Aghanos slash Gold Lewis slash Juggernaut, you know, which is nice to see that character archetype getting more, you know. It was sort of a meme for a very, very long time. Big character, grappler, right? Big character, they will be a grappler. It's like, oh, fucking Jesus, man, come on. Illaoi is a strong and muscular woman who attacks with a giant totem, so it makes sense that she would hit her own physical strength as opposed to being hiding behind the power of her god or magic abilities. We also need tentacles. Illaoi's god, Boros is a tentacle sea monster, and there needed to be some aspect of that in her kit. But beyond empowering her attacks, the sea monster also gives Illaoi strength to steal her opponent's soul. There's definitely going to be a mechanic there, right? There's going to be some crazy Kraken mechanic that is attached to hitting them with the tentacles and some shit. There's definitely going to be something in there. When figuring out which part was a dominant power, we decided that Illaoi would be the source of power and that Nagakaboro would have her back, especially when you take into account how effortlessly she wields the giant totem. This is some great shit. Damn, look how good this pose is, dude. Fuck. Look how great this pose is. Look how great these two fucking poses are. You know what is fantastic about her having the totem, just from an art side? What's fantastic about the totem having tentacles that essentially writhe from it is that the tentacles have their own gravity and essentially are being followed by motion, right? I could zoom in. When she is going to swing this stuff around, you're going to get like main motion, right? Like then this wonderful secondary motion whenever she slams her stuff around, right? It's great. Characters that have secondary motions, it's what makes Third Strike so fucking awesome, is that it has incredibly well done secondary motions with a lot of its characters. That's exactly what this is here to do. It's going to fulfill multiple things: gameplay, visuals, readability, all that shit, right? Using all this research, we developed Illaoi's goals and guardrails. I have to remember how to say her name every time, shut up. Which will help us determine which direction we want to go with her kit and what is venturing too far away from her core truth. Goals. Fights alongside the god. It's a constant looming threat that she feels supported by an opponent's fear. Slow but always in motion. Is always moving, and she punishes those who are motionless. This is one of the key beliefs of her god, and we wanted to represent throughout the gameplay. Overwhelming pressure. So this is she's Unga Bunga Queen. Once Illaoi puts the opponent in a position where they get hit or need to block, she is relentless, forcing her opponents to make a move on her terms. So it seems like she's going to be a character that absolutely is going to have like super good frame data. Granted, and I have to like get myself out of that mindset. It's a tag-based fighting game. Frame data is going to mean likely nothing, right? And it most likely will also have push block in some way. So yeah, you get a fighting game that essentially has push block, and then frame data just gets thrown out the fucking window, and you have to figure out how to play the game otherwise, you know? But it'll be interesting. We don't know if that's actually in the game or not. So her guardrails is the powerhouse, and the tentacle monster has her back. Her physical strength is her main source of power, and the tentacles from her god are there to assist, not replace. It is not the star of the show. Simple and straightforward, her power fantasy comes from the heavy, semi-short hits, heavy long hits, and simultaneously staggered hits from tentacles, but not from the complexity of managing the state of many entities. Oh, yeah. You can't use your brain too much, right? You get these crazy like monster characters, and you're not allowed to. You don't want to use your brain too much. Juggernaut players have like quarter a brain, and that's fine. But we need quarter brain characters. So it's not like the tentacles are like a puppet or something like that. You don't want. Oh, shit! Not a puppet master. Illaoi shouldn't feel like she is ordering around her god. She can control the tentacles from her totem. However, in any infinite spawn, tentacles should feel like gifts, not privileges. Okay, so she's a chores character. Illaoi doesn't get to spam these without earning them. She's literally a chores character. She's a chore brawling juggernaut character. Fun. Just read. I'm not reading ahead. I'm thinking about what I'm reading now. Not a zoner. Stop zoning. You should be shamed for zoning. You should feel shame. Like I think that we're reaching the new level of like fighting game design where your fighting game can have zoners, right? But you should feel shame, right? You should feel bad about you utilizing a zoning character. You should feel bad for playing grapplers and zoners. You should feel bad. They should email your parents. Right? They get all that information. You log into Project L, they ask for your name, your mother, your father's name, right? And they let your parents know your child is playing a zoner or a grappler. You might want to have a chat with them. When it comes to what archetype is used to describe Illaoi, it would probably be a big body juggernaut, an overwhelming battering ram who has the power of a god behind her, a heavy hitter who dominates when it's her turn in the mid-range and destroys her enemies with immense pressure. When we felt confident about the goals and guardrails, we started to design and implement early prototype specials and normals. The first version focused around Illaoi's ability to spawn a tentacle at different ranges. A close tentacle with fast startup, a mid-range tentacle with medium speed, and a long-range one with long startup. While it was fun to play, this style of design made it feel like more of a puppet master or zoner. Things that went against her goals and guardrails. It felt like the damage was focused on the tentacles from the ground when we really wanted to highlight bonking on people with a totem. Which character had that? It was in the reverse direction. Testament had a move that was like the big mouth thing got spawned and would like bite you and like arr, arr, from like different angles and stuff like that. Shang Tsung as well. Yeah. Also like Gargos, you know, they have these like things that pop from certain directions. While it was fun to play, this design made Illaoi feel more like a puppet master or zoner. Things that were against the goals and guardrails felt like we were damaging on the tentacles from the ground when what really we wanted was to highlight her bonking people with a totem. I think we're, you know, caught up. So it's super early and still in development and exploring our options, but the direction we're headed in to have the tentacle spawn a fixed distance away from Illaoi, and tentacles come out only when she successfully hits her opponent on hit and or block. The small change has already made a huge difference in the gameplay. Instead of summoning tentacles from far away and controlling them at will like a zoner, she now gets in her opponent's face, and when she does, there's also a tentacle slapping you around. One really strong image I had thought throughout developing her kit was that Illaoi should be able to hit an opponent into a tentacle and then have them bounce back into her, and she should be able to clothesline them like she's a pro wrestler. And the tentacles of are all like the wrestling ropes. That's a great idea, right? That's like, I don't think that stuff is probably in League. That's pretty sick. So what's next? Project L is in active development, and Illaoi is still pretty early on, so we've got some more work to do. But we'll check back later in on our process with devs from areas like animation, visuals, and audio to see how everyone's favorite big-bodied spirit tentacle using Juggernaut is shaping up, and for how we're doing overall. Look out for another update from Tom by the end of the year. Oh! And until then, let us know what you think. Are we sort of coming to the conclusion that no more updates until, you know, November-ish? After reading that, it seems like there might not be an EVO announcement. I think a lot of this stuff is very early, and they're probably just getting systems online for the whole game itself. Title drop at EVO. I think we got the EVO announcement already. You know, I think what we just watched and what we just read was in fact the quote-unquote EVO announcement. I think I'm most curious how, when they eventually come to a finality of core game mechanics, what they are going to focus on. Why not announce this at EVO? Well, because it's like a not announcement, you know? Like, this isn't something to get super hyped about. It's early character concept stuff, a reacclimation of what they were doing before, you know, in several ways. It's cool. It's cool for anybody that's like following fighting games or is interested in their development, or the fact that Project L is actually moving along, you know? That they're actually, the response that they got to the reveal that the game is a tag-based fighting game, well, now is a free-to-play tag-based fighting game, is a big deal. The fact that people are echoing a positive sentimentality regarding all of it is a big deal. So they're confident that what they came up with is a good idea. I won't lie, chat. There was a moment where earlier this year where I got an email from somebody at Riot, and they were like, hey, this is from the Project L team. And I was like, I swear to God, I rubbed my hands so hard together, I caught fire. And I was like, then I read the rest of it. We would like to use a clip from your YouTube video. And I was like, sure.